What if I told you that a woman predicted her own death? But that wasn't the strangest part of her story. 3 days after she died, she opened her eyes during her funeral, but she wasn't the same person anymore. She claimed to be someone else, someone from a town 50 miles away, someone who had already died. It sounds like the plot of a movie, but what if I told you this actually happened? A woman dies, and wakes up as someone else. What if death is just the beginning of something we can't explain? In a quiet town in rural Indiana, during the early 1970s, life moved at a slower pace. People knew their neighbors, families stayed close, and stories of strange happenings traveled fast. But nothing could prepare the town of Fairview for what was about to unfold. This is where it begins, with a woman named Emily, a mother and wife living an ordinary happy life with her husband John and their infant son, David. Emily was like any other woman in town. She cooked, cared for her child, and helped John with the small family business. But sometimes, even the simplest lives can hide the most extraordinary stories. Because in just a few months, Emily's life would take a turn that no one, not even she, could have predicted. For Emily, life seemed peaceful, but that peace wouldn't last. It began with small things, strange sensations, moments where she felt disconnected from herself. And then, one day, while drawing water from the well, everything changed. Emily stopped mid-step, her body froze, her eyes rolled back. Her neighbors called out to her, but she didn't respond. 5 minutes passed before she dropped the bucket and returned home, as if nothing had happened. Was it just stress, or was something else beginning to take hold? These strange episodes became more frequent. Her husband John, worried and confused, stayed by her side. But on the afternoon of July 16, 1985, Emily's condition took a chilling turn. As she sat quietly, Emily spoke in a voice that wasn't quite her own. She said just one thing. In exactly 3 days, I will die. No one knew what to make of it. Was it exhaustion, illness, or something else entirely? What would you do if your loved one said something like that? Would you brush it off, or feel the weight of those words? John tried to comfort her, but deep down, he felt something wasn't right. 3 days later on July 19th, Emily collapsed at the front door. Her body was lifeless. By evening, she was gone. The next day, the family began preparing her for burial. Imagine this, you're at a funeral, grieving someone you loved, and suddenly, the person in the casket opens their eyes. That's exactly what happened at Emily Thompson's funeral. But the woman who woke up wasn't Emily anymore. As she sat up, Emily looked around the room, confused. She didn't recognize her husband. She didn't recognize her home. Instead, she introduced herself as Margaret Wilson, a schoolteacher from Chicago. How could this be? How could a woman from Indiana, who had never left her town, claim to be someone from another city, someone who had died a year earlier? Margaret Wilson had died in an accident, 1 year earlier. Word spread quickly. Some whispered that Emily was possessed. Others believed she had lost her mind, but John wasn't convinced. He needed answers. A few weeks later, a team from the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies arrived in Fairview. This wasn't just any team, these were experts in reincarnation and past life memories. They interviewed Emily, or Margaret, extensively. What they found left them stunned. Margaret described her home in Chicago in vivid detail, the street names, the color of her front door, and even her neighbors' routines. She spoke about her late husband, Richard, and their 2 children, Michael and Lily. She knew things that no one outside of the Wilson family could have known. How could Emily, a woman who had never been to Chicago, recall such details? 3 months after Emily's return, something remarkable happened. Robert Wilson, Margaret's father, arrived in Fairview. The moment he walked through the door, Emily ran to him, tears streaming down her face. "Dad!" she cried, embracing him. Robert confirmed that every detail Emily recalled was accurate. From the handwriting to family recipes Margaret had known, it was as if his daughter had returned. But here lay the mystery. Margaret Wilson had died in a car accident in Chicago. She was buried, and yet, here she was, living as Emily Thompson. Emily, or Margaret, lived the rest of her life balancing 2 families, 2 identities, and 2 sets of memories. Her story remains one of the most compelling and mysterious reincarnation cases ever documented. Perhaps this story teaches us something deeper, that love, memory, and identity stretch beyond what we understand. Maybe the people we lose never truly leave us. What do you believe? Could this happen again? Could it happen to you, or someone you know? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating stories.